Let's talk about it. How to ruin a country. Hmm. I feel like there's a lot of ways you can ruin a country, to be honest with you. But hey,
Since 2023,
let's hear
Germany
it.
has been in an economic crisis, recording negative growth while every other major advanced economy kept expanding. The reason for this is that Germany has made decisions they absolutely should not have. And if you look at this map, you'll get a sneak peek into what happened.
Quick rundown. Maybe this is what he's going to talk about. Who knows? But this is part of it for sure. Germany, before Russia decided to invade Ukraine, it was kind of like, Europe was in a really unique spot because they were like, oh, we got all this cheap Russian oil that we can get. And most of Europe here, if you guys looked at it, had like pipelines in the sea here, pipelines over here, pipelines coming down through Ukraine. All of Europe was getting fed Russian oil. And this in this war definitely put a lot of loss on that cheap energy. And Germany, like many of these European countries, was going through a bunch of regulation, and they were putting a bunch of environmental regulation on their crap, and then just a bunch of red tape when that really shouldn't matter in a lot of these industries. So a lot of high skilled German labor kind of got fucked because they had to shut down factories and because of the war, and they're not getting cheap energy. And there's a whole, even amidst all of the energy crisis that Germany was having, like they had a hard time. I remember this girl I knew who was from Germany. She said that over the winter time, this was back in fuck 2023, 2023, 2024, somewhere around there. And I remember her telling me that she was like, "Oh yeah, we had to, pretty much use our fireplace to like heat up our houses because they would have to turn off heating throughout the day to like save the power or whatever because they only had so much." And on top of it, Germany decided to continue to close all of their nuclear power plants without replacing it. And the only thing they did was just continue to use whatever old coal mines that they had left in the country. So it's kind of like now messed up because Germany has ruined all of its, like, can't produce anymore. Germany has the strongest economy out of all of Europe, and if they're not manufacturing or doing anything, like dog, that's not a good state for what's going on in the rest of the continent.
Each of these lights represents a nuclear power plant in
Oh,
Germany,
he is
and
talking
one
about
by
it.
one, they've all gone dark. In the
Mm-hmm.
span of just 20 years, every single plant has been shut down. This was a conscious decision made by Germany.
It's a self-inflicting decision. It's weird that all of these politicians, some of them, it's like Europe said we can't be the militaristic power like we once were, right? Because you got to think right after World War II and the way that rebuilding was happening, so they knew that they couldn't be this militaristic power anymore. Okay, so they said, you know what? Because of how many people we have here and how strong our economies are and how America and China and all those other places need to sell to the European Union because they have to. That's such a huge market. They said we, instead of us being the military, we'll be the the regulators. So we'll regulate everything. And guys, we can't deny that Americans have benefited from certain EU laws that they did over there that our American companies have to live by, right? I think one of those being is the phone charger with USB-C that they passed it saying no more of all these 15 different cords, like you got to have one charger. So like there's stuff like that that they did that we benefit from. But that was the position Europe shifted to, is more diplomacy, right? Kind of made them a little vulnerable to other countries that didn't decide to drop their military. And then on top of it, you want to like turn off nuclear power, which is a great, cheap, reusable way for our energy. Now, I get it that the waste is a little hard, and we have not quite found a way to effectively throw it out other than burying it deep underground in cement or storing it somewhere. So that's where the hesitation is. And then we've had some few catastrophes along the way, so it's made people a little apprehensive with nuclear energy. But I'm all for it, in my opinion. I think we need more nuclear power plants. It's a good, cheap, reusable way for energy. Really is.
A decision you will soon learn was one
Damn,
of
we're already
incredible
30
oversight
seconds
and
into
will
this.
be one of the major catalysts for what will eventually become Germany's deindustrialization. By the end of this video, you'll understand how Germany went from Europe's industrial powerhouse to an economic disaster. And these nuclear power plants are just a piece of the puzzle here. Trust me, it's way worse than you could possibly imagine. So here's how Germany got to this point. It's 2002 and Gerhard Schröder's Social Democrats form a coalition government with the Greens. This is the Red-Green coalition. For the Greens, this is their chance. They've been founded on opposing nuclear power for over 20 years, and now they're finally in government. The deal they strike is simple. All nuclear power plants will be shut down by 2022. That's a 20-year timeline, which to them sounded reasonable. They argue that it gives utilities time to build alternatives, it gives the grid time to adapt, it's a measured phase-out. But here's what they didn't account for. They assumed that by 2022, renewable energy would be so advanced and so cheap that replacing nuclear power would be easy. They assumed Germany would stay committed to this plan regardless of what happened in the world. All of which...
So pretty much a bunch of bureaucrats sat in an office and they were making decisions that they had no idea realistically what the damage would, and that's a huge problem. There's no, like, these people in there have no idea what they're doing. They just, like, go whatever sounds and looks good on paper. They actually don't understand, like, actually pushing shit through and seeing things out and how it's going to go. That's an issue.
Which did, of course, not happen. Here's what happened instead. Angela Merkel's government did a complete reversal and extended the plans by 12 years. The reason why was painfully obvious, since renewables at this time weren't going to be ready by 2022. Solar and wind had grown, sure, but they still couldn't provide reliable baseload power. For that, you need electricity 24/7, not just when it's sunny or windy. And battery storage technology was nowhere near advanced enough to solve this problem at the time. But then, as we all know, the Fukushima disaster happened in March 2011. A tsunami hits Japan, and their nuclear plant melts down. Unfortunately, by looking in the rearview mirror, it seems people in Germany didn't really understand, or maybe even wanted to understand, the circumstances and why this disaster happened, and demanded nuclear power to be shut down.
They didn't care.
What should have been made clear is that Germany has no coastline exposed to tsunamis. Germany sits on a stable continental crust with virtually zero earthquake risk. The condition that caused Fukushima literally cannot happen in Central Europe. This is why, while there was a surge in opposition to nuclear power in France, it was still only a small part of the population, and so they kept nuclear power plants running. But science didn't matter. The German public still made the objectively wrong choice. So within days of Fukushima, Merkel shut down 8 reactors immediately. The remaining 9 were scheduled for closure by 20...
Dude, so you guys just said, fuck, we have to gut react and shut down 8 immediately. And you had no replacement for that. And by the way, do you know who conveniently loves Europe buying up all this energy? Or going reusable? China. China loves it. They're like the #1 country that's actually like manufacturing it and like investing in this. And all these trade deals you see China having with the European Union, it's mainly them selling like, hey, you guys are going to buy this renewable energy shit. Because by the way, China's not, I mean, they're saying they're doing it to save face, but do they have nuclear power? They have a bunch of coal factories that they're still doing, so... No, they're not really buying into all that crap. While Europe's selling out its energy industry for some fucking reason, they're just, again, self-inflicting this issue onto them. And they were pretty reliant on Russia, and I hope he brings that up.
22. Her hand was forced by public panic and party politics won over physics. But here's where it gets really stupid. Because they were turning their nuclear reactors off and the sustainable energy hadn't come online yet, they became extremely reliant on Russian gas imports. And by 2021, Russia supplied 55% of Germany's natural gas. Over half. Germany bet its entire industrial future on cheap Russian pipeline gas while simultaneously shutting down nuclear and planning to shut down coal as well. They called Russian gas a, quote, bridge technology to renewables. A bridge that, as we
So you guys were like, yeah, let's turn off the nuclear power plants and the coal. We'll just lump that in there together because it makes it all sound bad. And then we'll buy this clean oil or energy that we're using in the meantime. Clean oil, guys. It's from Russia. It's pure. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, Germans, come on, guys. Like, you guys are smart people. Like, you are. You are really smart people. How the fuck did you guys not see that this was going to be an issue? I want to see the United States build more nuclear energy. I think it would actually be good for us. And you guys were like, let's do the fucking opposite. Let's tear our shit down. Especially like these small countries, like Germany, like they're a smaller country geographically. So yeah, using nuclear energy is better. It requires less space and it doesn't require a lot for you to do, to be honest.
all know completely collapsed. Because if we fast forward to February 2022, Russia invades Ukraine, and by summer that year, Russia starts throttling gas supplies. Then in September of that same year, the Nord Stream pipelines get sabotaged and the physical connection is severed. Germany is now in big trouble and energy prices spike. The whole house is crashing down. But the worst of it runs through 2023 and into 2024. Germany's economy stagnates while every other major advanced economy keeps growing. Then in late 2024, electricity prices hit 820 euros per megawatt hour. For comparison, France, with its nuclear fleet still running, saw wholesale prices around 100 to 150 euros per megawatt hour during peak demand, which, by the way, is already quite high, making Germany's prices absolutely insane. And just to clarify, this price wasn't the peak price that only some people paid, it was the price that everyone paid. The reason for this is that the mechanism that underlies all of this is a little bit intricate, so I'll explain it now. In the European electricity market, prices aren't set by the average cost of producing power. They're set by the most expensive power plant that's needed to meet demand at any given moment. Think of it like an auction where the last bid sets the price for everyone. Here's how it works. On a windy, sunny day when demand is low, renewables can cover most of Germany's electricity needs. Solar and wind have a marginal cost of basically zero. The sun and wind are free after all. So prices crash, sometimes even going negative, where producers actually have to pay to offload their electricity. But on a cold, dark winter evening when demand is high and there's no wind or sun, Germany needs to fire up natural gas plants to keep the lights on. And natural gas is expensive, especially after the Russian supply got cut off and Germany had to switch to expensive liquefied natural gas imports, otherwise known as LNG. Anyway, when that gas plant comes online as the marginal producer, it sets the price for the entire market. So everyone, even the renewable producers, are paid that gas price. And some of you may be realizing why nuclear power would have saved Germany in this instance, because nuclear provides constant baseload power at a very low marginal cost. Nuclear is exceptionally cheap comparatively. If Germany still had its nuclear fleet, they wouldn't need to rely on these gas plants.
If Germany never got rid of any of those nuclear power plants, they would never have had this energy problem at all. And this whole war with Russia never would have crippled them or put them in a really bad position to have to like quick react. That's the problem, is that it's like I get the initiative, but we have to be realistic at some point. Like at some time you got to sit there and go, guys, look, and even like the left, right? They need to get this message too. It's like, I understand we want to push this initiative to go green, but we have to be real with like how this is just going to affect people. Because I'm all good wanting to have more parks, keeping the air clean, all that stuff. Who isn't, right? But at the same time, I also like nuclear power plants are good. I'd rather us maybe invest in more resources and research into maybe finding ways to use all the waste from uranium and everything that we do with nuclear power, because that's really the issue with nuclear power. Instead, they're just throwing money at everything else and not actually wanting to research that. Because it may take some time for us to have to figure that out, but I think it would pay off in the long run. So we have to make some decisions here, right?
Nearly as often. And the marginal...
But what is it? 3 Mile Island? Mile High Island? Whatever There was an accident on the East Coast with one of our nuclear power plants, and that for a lot of Americans here, and obviously everyone remembers was it Chernobyl? Everyone knows what's going on there. So, there certain people in that I could see why there was a huge push to get rid of it. Right, there was a lot of nuclear power plants in a 20, 30 year time frame that kind of just started exploding for random reasons.
Price would be set by cheaper sources way more frequently. But because they shut down nuclear power, they hit that expensive gas wall much sooner and much more often. The result? Well, structural high prices that make German industry completely uncompetitive. Yet still, on April 15th, 2023, in the middle of the worst energy crisis in European history, Germany shut down their last nuclear power plants. But what I find interesting, and maybe even slightly humorous, is what you can see on this map. See these dots? These are French and Swiss nuclear power plants. Notice how close they are to the German border. The French one is around 15 kilometers away and the Swiss one about 5 kilometers. If you didn't know, the impact radius of such power plants is estimated to be around 50 kilometers if they melted down. Which you would think Germany must be really angry about, considering their, policy on nuclear power, right?
No.
Well, no. In fact, the existence of these plants have saved Germany from a total energy collapse. Germany, due to their own questionable decisions, is forced to buy massive amounts of electricity from France and Switzerland. Electricity that is, get this, mostly nuclear. So, to get us all on the same page here, Germany shut down its own nuclear power plants because they were too dangerous, and there was also some talk about it being too centralized, but they're perfectly happy buying nuclear power from plants that, if they melted down, would affect the exact same German population. Makes total sense. Now, let's talk about Germany's renewable strategy, because believe it or not, they didn't plan this very well either. Look at this map. See where all the wind turbines are? They're all primarily in the north. This is because in the North Sea, wind is very constant and predictable. So it makes sense to put the wind turbines here. That's not the problem. The problem is that all the industrial plants are primarily located in the south. Now, this is obviously not a problem
by the Rhine land,
because it's very easily solved with a transmission line connecting the north and the south. And there is a plan for a transmission line. It's called the Südlink. Unfortunately, that has been delayed because the very place this transmission line was supposed to be linked to and help, they didn't want to look at it. I'm not joking. Bavaria demanded it be dug underground, which will
Germany, they do that. Like, if you guys notice, a lot of their power plants, like, in that photo they're up, but I remember that that German girl told me, she was like, oh yeah, like, it's kind of like when I look at American towns and I see all, like, the power lines everywhere, it's kind of like a cool novelty thing. Like, it's kind of like, ooh, wow. It's like, they almost feels like, to them, it's like antique. It's like, oh wow, you guys still do that? Which, I'm not going to lie, I know it's more expensive to do, but I would be game to put it underground. I think it'd be cool. It'd be better for the scenery, like just not seeing all that crap everywhere, in my opinion.
Will not only make it 4 to 10 times more expensive, but also delay the project by 6 years.
Oh yeah, it'd be a lot.
This means the new completion date is set to 2028. What this means is that Germany is forced to pay wind farms in the north to shut down because the cables can't handle the power when it gets too windy. Then they also have to pay gas and coal plants in the south to turn on to meet demand. This costs billions. In 2023 and 2024, these redispatch costs ran into the 3 to 4 billion euro range annually. It's insane. But let's talk about what all of this means for the German industry, because it's not going to be taken lightly. If we take a look at this chart showing industrial electricity prices in 2024, Germany sits at 0.199 euros per kilowatt hour, where the United States is at around 0.075 euros and China is at 0.082 euros.
Why would you do business in Europe? And I think for the first time, Volkswagen actually closed one of their manufacturing plants there. In all of its history, 85 plus years, whatever, Volkswagen's been there, they've never once. So guys, we're talking like the Depression through World War II, post-World War II, Cold War. They've never closed factories in Germany, but now they have to because it's non-economics. They can't afford it anymore. Doesn't make sense. Like, guys, look at the price difference. Why wouldn't you want to do business in America or China or somewhere else that has it even better? Right? I mean, it makes sense. Like, Europe has self-inflicted themselves with all these weird regulations, especially in their farm industry, too.
This means if you're running a chemical plant for a steel mill, you literally cannot compete. If electricity is
you
2
literally
to 3
can't.
times more expensive, how could anyone be able to make a competitively priced product? You can't. And the result of this is that BASF, one of Germany's largest chemical companies, just announced a $10 billion investment in China. They are moving production. The CEO has been brutally critical of Germany's energy policy, and for good reason. This is absolutely ridiculous, especially considering what
Because if the energy has gone up to the point to where they can't even fit it within their margins, then it's not profitable. Because they can only be there for so long. And I understand that people are going to go, corporations are greedy, corporations take so much money. But at the end of the day, there's numbers and there's business to all this. There's logistics that you have to go with. And if it's not logical or logistical to keep manufacturing in Germany when it's like great, because they're not even arguing paying wages, right? That's not the argument, it's the energy. That's why, like, my biggest argument is, like, even in America, like, if we find a way, and I know Trump and Vance and all of them, they've talked about this, but if they can find a way to continue to lower energy cost, manufacturing costs across the board, just to build and do things is just going to be cheaper because they don't have to spend as much money on that. And we can talk about the CEOs and them making $50 million a year to do absolutely nothing. Most of that's in stocks, but regardless, like, we can talk about all that on a side topic. Main thing is that if you do tackle that issue, everything would be cheaper. And in Germany's case, they wouldn't want to leave and go to China, Poland, or wherever else they are running to.
Germany's model has been for decades, to sell machines and cars to China and the world. And for years this has worked because they had cheap electricity, and Germany had a trade surplus with China. Now, however, Germany records a trade deficit with China of 66.3 billion euros. The flow has reversed. Germany now imports batteries, solar panels, and electronics, while Chinese firms achieve technological sovereignty and don't need German machinery anymore. I hope you're starting to see that this is already looking pretty grim for Germany. So why not add one more crisis to the whole situation?
Why not?
Look at this population pyramid. Germany is aging rapidly. The baby boomer generation is retiring and there aren't enough workers to replace them. By 2035, Germany's potential workforce is projected to shrink by 7 million people. That's not ideal, and here's the economic impact. In 2024, over 100 billion euros in tax revenue gets diverted just to keep pensions solvent. By 2045, pension contributions are forecast to hit 22% of gross wages. That's a massive tax on labor that makes hiring even more expensive. So here's where we are. Germany shut down its clean, reliable nuclear power, became addicted to Russian gas, got blindsided by geopolitics, built a renewable system without storage or transmission, priced energy so high that industry is now leaving, alienated the middle class with heavy-handed climate policies, and now faces a demographic collapse with a
Great success. Great success. That isn't, guys, that's not just Germany. That's like Western society, like, summed up in a bubble right there.
pension system that's bleeding money. They chose ideology over pragmatism, politics over physics, and now they're paying the price. The question now is whether they can reverse course or if it's too late. Now, if you're anything like me and you appreciate
It's never not too late. Like, obviously they can reverse course if they really want to. That means admitting that they were wrong. I don't know if you're going to be able to convince politicians to admit that they're wrong, because they have to focus on re-elections and stuff like that. And why would anybody want to say, "Yeah, we fucked up the energy industry in Germany. Sorry guys, that was me." Like, no one's going to do that.
good cartography, I've got something you'll love. I run mapstudios.com. It's a premium map store where I curate museum quality prints of cities, countries, and
It's kind of
regions from
nice.
around the world. Whether you want a
Oof.
detailed map of Europe or a topographic print of the German industrial heartland or a minimalist city design for your wall, we've got you covered. Every map is printed on archival quality paper with the kind of detail that makes them perfect for framing and hanging on your walls. You want to show off these maps. And because I want you guys to get your hands on these maps, you can get 20% off your
That's
order
pretty cool.
using code OBF at checkout, and we have free worldwide shipping as well, so don't worry about that. It doesn't matter where you live, we will ship it to you for free. Just be aware it will take us a while to pack these orders because we are
I
sending
saw it in
them
the
from
back
our
there.
hub
I was
in the
looking at that
United
on his
States,
video.
so please be patient. And yeah, this is the best way to support the channel, so check them out if you want. But that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
I always do that. I don't know why I always like click like that.
Since 2023, Germany has
No, that is a great video. OBF, definitely drop a subscribe to his channel. He I'll do it myself while I'm here. Boop. There we go. Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever watched his videos before, so that's definitely a good video. Honestly, really good video. What he said pretty much summed it up. They sold out their energy. They got rid of all their nuclear power plants, and it made literally no sense. I know, like, every person I've asked, like, more younger, has been like, yeah, no, I'm game for nuclear power. A lot of the older generations tend to be a little hesitant, and I get it. Like, I understand why people are hesitant, right? Like, all the disasters that happened. But I think that's why we need to honestly put more research into making nuclear the best option. I mean, we have to find a way. And crippling your manufacturing industry, like China says, we don't need you anymore. We can manufacture everything ourselves. We don't need your high skilled labor. We don't need all your factories. We don't need it. We can do it all here. Sorry. Germany. So now you guys have like Europe is sold out. It's pretty much its industry, manufacturing, its innovation to the west and to the east. They got rid of it. They're like, we don't matter. Europe's like, we're good. We'll be the place that like people will go visit, like tourists, and be like, oh, this is the place that like used to innovate. This is the place that used to build things, right? Like when they're going to look around, it's going to be more of a retirement home, if anything. That's all Europe has shifted itself into, and it's sad. There's a lot of history, a lot of great countries in there, and they're totally demographically changing. Their whole societies are flipping, and the people are getting older, and that's why the easiest solution for these corporations, companies, wow, for these countries is immigration. That's how they're going to replace a lot of this labor. They don't want to put policy to, encourage families and stuff like that. But either way, even if they were to do that, that's going to take minimum 18 years to get, reasonable workers into the workforce. So they're in a bubble, and a lot of Western countries, including the United States, is in this issue. But we've tried to, Trump's at least trying to fix the manufacturing and bring back business. A lot of Europe's not even trying that. We're getting a lot of EU business, so that's what ends up happening there. So if you guys like these videos, you want to see more of them, like, comment, and subscribe for more. I always appreciate the support. I try to keep up with all this. I love what I do, like chatting with everybody. If you guys have any comments on this, yeah, I want to hear what you guys' thoughts are down below. I'm just purely curious if you guys think this is fixable, and if Germany, I guess, can pivot, can 180. So yeah, appreciate the support. Like, comment, subscribe for more. Thank you. Have a good one. Be safe.